Today we're talking about core energy and specifically how that impacts your leadership. So a lot of times we say things, but there's an undercurrent or a tone that isn't always matched up to what we're saying, or our body language doesn't always match up to what our intention is. So the purpose behind today is to figure out what it is that you're trying to say, what it is I'm trying to say, and if we're meeting in the middle somewhere with our energy level. So specifically, we are focusing today on core energy leadership. So how to create effective and influential core energy communication strategies. And that sounds super abstract and super all over the place, but I promise you, this is my guarantee to you, that I will help you not only understand each of the 7 levels within you, but how to see them in other people, and then how to create a strategy to meet in the middle. So here's a little bit about me. My name is Lauren Lemunyon. I am a professional certified coach, which means that I am certified through the International Coaching Federation, which is a governing body of the coaches. I go by the Spitfire Coach because I want to uncover the truth in fire and figure out a way to help you spit it. So creating those strategies and how you can communicate that passion. I also host a podcast, so the Spitfire Podcast, and if you haven't checked it out, you can go to spitfirepodcast.com or check it out on Apple Podcasts. And I am also an Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner. So that is specifically what we're talking about today. That's the ELI, Energy Leadership Index. If you're one of my clients and on here today, then you have probably already have one of these assessments. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, then you're going to know what I'm talking about by the end of it, and you'll know how to incorporate it. In addition to the Energy Leadership Index, I am also certified as a Myers-Briggs Type Indicator practitioner as well. So I'm certified in personality assessments and attitudinal assessments. So before all the coaching stuff, I used to work in as an executive director in the nonprofit world. So lots of characters, lots of different dynamics, lots of team building, and lots of conflict, really. There's a lot of toxicity in that world. So I became a coach to help people work better together and to really help inspire them to be awesome and love the work that they were doing. When I'm not coaching, the next one is I am a Jersey Fresh rapper. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can actually look up Life Coach Lauren Raps on YouTube or some format of that, and you can see what I'm talking about. And my greatest accomplishment is I'm a dog mom to Rico Suave, the bulldog. So he's not here today, but he sends his regards. He's there with you all, holding some good energy for you. So what are we going to learn today? Well, I'm going to provide an overview of what core energy is. So those 7 levels that I was talking about, and specifically understanding those 2 different types of energy, so catabolic and anabolic. And then we're going to go into the specific benefits and drawbacks of each of those 7 levels. So a lot of times when I do this assessment for people, they immediately think level 1 is the lowest and 7 is the highest. So I want to be at 7. And if I'm at level 1, then I feel bad. And if I feel at level 7, then I'm good. And there really is no judgment on these. There are benefits and drawbacks of everything that you do. There's a cause and effect. And it's more along the lines of you understanding what works best for you at any situation. So when you're encountering different people in different energy levels, being at the same level each time isn't necessarily the best strategy. So it's figuring out how to be adaptable and flexible and aware and conscious of your options and your choices. Once we go through all those benefits and drawbacks, we're going to figure out for you how to recognize how each of these levels show up in you. So when you can understand how you interact with those energies, how it manifests in you, you're then better able to have an awareness of how it shows up in other people. So this helps to take us objectively outside of ourselves and our own perspective, and it starts to increase empathy. So we can start to understand the inner workings of other people, what's actually going on, rather than what the specific observation that we're making and the interpretation we're making on them. So after we go through each of those levels, how it shows up in you, how it shows up in other people, I'm going to give you some tools and tactics on how to approach them, because that's really what you're here for. That's the good stuff. I'm going to give you a toolkit and an example on how to best meet that person in that energy level. And if you have any questions, if you have specific examples, I got some questions ahead of time from people. If you have anything that pops up, feel free to ask. this is how it's best applied. If you can think of people in your life that are showing up a certain way, or if you're showing up a certain way, feel free to ask if that's what you're thinking or feeling, and we can work it out. So this is core energy coaching. This is the basic definition, the history behind it. So it's relatively new in the grand scheme of coaching application. It was developed in 1999 by Bruce Schneider, who is the founder of IPEC, which is what I was certified through. So it's the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. Try to say that 10 times fast. And it's based on 7 levels of energy or consciousness. So our awareness on different aspects of life. And when we can see how it shows up in us and in other people, then that actually expands our consciousness and our objectivity in the world. So with awareness, understanding, and knowledge of how we can apply each level, we can then alter our perception of ourselves, our work, and those around us, so we can create a more powerful, fulfilling, and rewarding life. So that's pretty awesome. So basically, if you can think of the 7 levels as 7 different lenses, and I'm going to show you an image on this, I think it's the next slide, or it might be the one after that, but you can actually see how expansive your world and your view can get based on the different levels that you look at. Actually, so that's going to be in a couple slides. So the first, this right here, we're going to be focusing primarily on 2 different types of energy, anabolic and catabolic. So energy exists in the universe. This is not some woo-woo term. This is not some new age mumbo jumbo. Energy exists. It's what allows life to happen. So energy is just not stagnant. It's not just sitting around. It will either expand or it will cannibalize or minimize. So it either destroys itself or it grows. So this first level of energy is anabolic energy. And the example I give is steroids. So anabolic steroids, they help your muscles grow. But anabolic energy is this way of being constructive, expanding. It fuels and it heals and it grows. So when we feel this energy around us, it actually helps to bring in more energy. So if you've ever heard of The Secret or the law of attraction, like energy attracts like energy. So anabolic energy expands because it's attracting more energy like that. And it helps us move forward, and it really is amazing for achieving long-term successful results. And it helps us lead others in that same direction. So when people are in that same energy field that we're going for, they're really jumping on board that happy train, and they're like, woo woo. So it allows us to have a more complete and conscious view of what's going on around us, and we can come up with solutions and innovations. So if you can think of a time where you were just full of creativity and inspiration, you're like, everything is clicking, and all these people were showing up as you're going to help you along the way, that's anabolic energy, because people will just be drawn into that infectious energy of growth. Now, on the flip side, not to be a buzzkill, catabolic energy is the flip side of this. So catabolic energy, it drains us, it creates resistance, and it contrasts and has conflict with a lot of different types of energy. We may get that initial boost, like an adrenaline rush, that becomes a bit combative with when stress comes in. So catabolic energy is usually in line with a stress reaction. So if you think about on a very primal level, fight or flight. So when stress or a threat comes in, we either run at it, or we run away from it, or we hide. So this is what catabolic energy serves. It has very short-term benefits, and obviously that first benefit is to keep us alive. It keeps us safe. But on a long-term basis, we're feeling that a mental, emotional, and physical toll that can be super destructive to us, to the people that are around us, to organizations that we work in, and we feel it. Like, it's super draining. And if you notice, when you're in a craptastic mood, when you're feeling like everything is coming down, when other people feed into that energy, it just creates more weight on you. You don't feel better. But you may find that other people are kind of feeding into the stress and that anxiety and that rage that pops up. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. These are the 2 primary concepts that we're going to be focusing on as we go into the different 7 levels. So these are primary catabolic, short-term benefits, long-term drain, and anabolic is more long-term benefits and growth-centered. So this is that nice little bullseye. And if you can't read this, don't worry. It is in the attachment in the calendar invite for this. But this is my recreation of the 7 levels. So it looks like a bullseye, but think about the center of this circle as the center of you. So it's self-care, self-promotion, self, but it's all about kind of self-protection here. So level 1 and 2 in that center core is all about you and taking care of yourself. And that's where our catabolic energy sits. When we get beyond, when we go 3 to 5, we're talking about self-mastery. So that's us mastering ourselves with our environment and people around us. When we jump up to level 6 and 7, this is what we call self-transcendence. So this is us stepping outside of ourselves and kind of observing, but not really being too interested in ourselves or the judgment that happens with it. So don't worry, you don't have to remember all of this stuff. We're going to be going in even deeper on all of these concepts, but this is how you can think of the view of the world. So when we're stressed, imagine only being able to see out of a pinhole. Well, that's much bigger than a pinhole, but you get what I mean. So our view is only seeing directly what's in front of us. When we're in level 2, it's a little bit bigger, so we can see here. But as we go from 3, 5, 6, and 7, we start to widen our opportunities and what we can see. There seems to be so much more around of us and so many more options and resources that we can tap into once we realize that we don't have to just react with 1 or 2 options in level 1 or 2. So you can almost think of when you have mastery of these 7 levels, you now have 7 different options in how you want to react. Make sense? I'm going to take a sip of water because I feel like I've been talking a lot. All right, so moving on. Okay, so let's go into level 1. This is the highest level of catabolic energy. So this is the first level of our energy. And that chart that I showed you before was an energetic self-perception chart. So you can see where you are on that scale at any time. And the key thing, but actually, let me go back to this a little bit. Before we dive into these levels, the key principle behind this is one level is not better than the other, but one level may be more appropriate than another. And each of these levels is going to have something that works in a situation, but if we hang out there too long, it may not work for us. So it's not about, well, I want to feel level 7 all the time. Some levels are just not sustainable. Level 6 and 7, if we're in a self-transcendence, we kind of lose touch of reality. And if we're hanging out in level 1 and 2, we may be exhausted all the time. So it's more about an understanding and an application of a toolbox that you're carrying with you and how you want to apply these as you go through life and how you see other people and how you can apply them. So this isn't a matter of saying, well, all level 1 is bad and all level 7 is good, and this is how I want to model my life. But it's saying, okay, here's how I show up on an average basis on a regular day, and here's how I'm reacting to stress. And then it's putting you in the driver's seat and taking the accountability of how you want to feel. What is the mindset? What is your intention behind the energy that you want to put forth in a team effort or in an individual effort? What do you want your world to be about? And the key thing is you have the choice. This isn't saying I was born this way, this is how I was raised, so therefore I have to think this way. This is 100% within your power. And this is different than a personality test or personality type that you might be assigned, so Myers-Briggs. So in that, you get 4 letters, and you're either told that you're an introvert or an extrovert, you have a preference to that, or you have certain ways that you process information. That seems very stuck. This is how you always are. But this is the next level on that. The Energy Leadership Index will give you now the toolkit to say, okay, you have a preference for these things, but now how do you utilize these different levels in order to get the best outcome with different types of people? Okay. If you have any questions, let me know, because I feel like I'm just speaking to myself. Cool. All right, so let's dive into level 1 here. Again, this is the highest level of catabolic energy, so this is a very heavy energy. Mike, can you mute your line? Okay, we're good. Awesome. So level 1, Mike's actually like right over my shoulder. I can see him. I should have just flagged him down. All right, cool. So we're in level 1. It is the highest level of catabolic energy. It's super heavy. A lot of the feelings here, and I hate using the word victim because really crappy things happen to people, but this is more of the perception that life is happening to you, that it's 100% out of your control, that it doesn't matter what you do, life is just going to keep happening to you and it's usually not going to go well. There's a lot of feelings of emotions and beliefs and thoughts that hold you back from success. So if something bad happens in your job or with your relationship or family, you probably could create a list of all of the things that have happened to you, why it didn't work out. So like you're literally like, I'm just feeling my body do it as I talk about it. This is not a good feeling on a long-term basis. There's feelings of guilt, of fear, worry, tons of self-doubt, and low self-esteem. So people who have long-term presence in level 1 feel the weight of it every day. Now, the key thing here is that there may be signs of depression here, but it's not to be confused with an actual mental illness or chemical imbalance or things like that. That is definitely something that should be treated. And not everybody who suffers from depression is at a level 1. But this is more of picking up on that, of like when someone is feeling stuck in this, and you might take different time periods here in level 1. We all kind of do. There's this feeling of doubt and things. So we aren't just kind of coasting along and like, yeah, everything's great. Every human being has these peaks and valleys. And so this is usually that self-protection or self-care that comes in. So when we feel level 1 come in, it's this drop of like, I got to take a time out. Let me just sit this one out. Because I feel like if I touch anything, it's going to go to the shitter, pardon my French. But you feel like anything you touch just does not work out. And you feel this lack of choice and options. You're trapped. You just have one way of being and it's not going to go well. So you might as well just take your ball and go home. So there's this avoidance of situations like you aren't showing up to even make a mistake because you know that you're just going to keep making mistakes. And there's a real hesitation to make any decision because you don't trust yourself. And then there's this feeling of being helpless and hopeless. And once you kind of get into that cycle of thinking, it's really challenging to get out of it because all of your evidence has now been recreated into creating this mindset of I lose. So that's why this last piece of I lose or I'm losing comes in. That's kind of the mantra of someone who has been in level 1 for a long time. So the difference in this is to recognize if someone is chronically in level 1 or if it's a temporary level 1. A lot of people will see someone who's having a bad day and will kind of put the Eeyore cloud over them, but they may just be taking a break in level 1. Now, the benefit of level 1 is when you're checked out, other people and other energy levels come in to help you. And this is actually part of that connection that we're going to talk about different levels that serve each other but may keep them stuck. So what happens if someone is saying, I can't do it, I lose. I just keep losing. And someone comes in to help them and says, oh, let me just fix that for you. I can just do this for you. I'll help you. I'll make it all better. That actually serves into level 1. It says, yeah, I can help you and I'm going to help you. But it never puts the person in level 1 into a driver's seat of helping themselves. So it actually creates this recreation cycle of when I need help, but when I'm losing, someone else can do this for me because I can't do it for myself. So it actually becomes more part of their rhetoric at that point. So when they're saying, I can't do it, they're actually not asking to say, I need you to do this for me. They're saying, show me so that I can do it for myself. So this is one of those key tips in the WTF am I saying to really listen for how much of this is your assumption of what they need for help and how much of it is what they really need. So this is you stepping outside of yourself to understand how you are in level 1 and what it is that you really need. And we're going to do an exercise at the end of this to help you kind of sort that out of how you show up in each level and what are those thoughts and feelings and what do you need in the end. Okay? Any questions on level 1? Feel free to let me know. Okay, we're moving up. Level 2. So we're still in that self-protection circle. This is the second highest level of catabolic energy. And it's predominant in the workplace and in life. So if you've ever been stuck in traffic, if you've ever been around a board table, if you've ever had to make a decision or get something done, there's a lot of conflict that happens because there's a lot of agenda pushing, I'm right, you're wrong. When we think about traditional workplace hierarchies, there's one person in charge that's dictating orders down. So this is where level 2 really lives and thrives. And it's why a lot of people experience burnout. Because if you're not, even if you're in the driver's seat of this, if you're a primary level 2, what we said before with catabolic energy is it's very short-term beneficial, long-term exhausting. So that's the key thing. It's like, how are you feeling at the end of a long day? If you're feeling like, all right, I'm ready to go work out, or I'm ready to go work on my side project, or I'm ready to go see friends, you're probably not in a primary catabolic state. But if you're exhausted and worn out every day, there's probably an aspect of your job or your commute or some sort of interplay with you that's bringing that out. So think about the end of your day and where things are coming up. Are you feeling energized or are you feeling exhausted? And then think about what takes the most energy out of you. Is it working with certain people? Is it a project? Is it transportation? Is it the way that you are kind of fueling yourself throughout the day? So level 2 energy, lots of conflict here. The core emotion is anger, and it's usually anger that's not specifically rooted in anything particular, but it's more of like this frustration, and it's like, just do it. Ugh. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't always show up in this way that someone is like pulsating red in their eyes or veins popping out. It can be a very subtle frustration or anger, but the key thing to point out is this judgment of right and wrong, good or bad, and winning. So it's not so much about consensus as much as it's do it my way or no way. And if you don't do it, then it's not a good thing. So this is the thing. We tend to reward level 2 leaders in our workplace and around in our society because we see results. But often we're seeing the after effects and we're not really seeing the residual impact of the workers or people that are facilitating this progress. So people who have a level 2 energy leadership style are often unhappy and unhealthy. And this is why we see a lot of bad habits, unhealthy habits like drinking, drug use, overeating, lack of sleep. We're not necessarily seeing self-care because it becomes about the output and doing and making things happen. And we end up applauding people who can pick out what's wrong and who's to blame because they fix it quickly. But what ends up happening is there's like a whole battlefield of people left who had to take the brunt of it. And it's not good for morale. It's not good for sustainable growth. It's not good for really anything on a long-term basis. So while it might make shareholders happy in the short term, on a long-term basis, there's probably a lot of turnover with their teams, with leadership, and there's probably a lot of uncertainty and fear that happens. Because imagine if you have a level 2 boss coming at you every day, and you're just kind of anticipating, when's he going to blow up at me? Or how many times am I going to be told I'm wrong today? The key thing, level 2 and 1, level 2 feeds off of level 1. So imagine someone who's saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And level 1's like, I'm losing, why bother? They become the prime target for level 2. So if you can think about how you may have shown up in that equation, on which side, and how you could potentially do things differently in the future. So level 2 gets a lot of things done. It's highly productive, short-term, long-term, exhausting. All right, we're moving out of catabolic because this is actually tiring me out right now, even talking about it. So we're talking about self-mastery. This is level 3, and this is the first level of anabolic energy. So level 3 is an interesting place because when we look at our bullseye, level 3 is that first ring outside of the catabolic energy, which means that a lot of time it kind of teeter-totters between catabolic and anabolic. It's 60% anabolic, which means that it's more growth-centered, but it has 40% of catabolic energy, which means that there's still that heavy weight to it. So people and leaders in level 3 take responsibility for their thoughts, their emotions, their actions, and they know what they think and feel is up to them and not others. So there's this ownership of whatever's going on with them. And level 3 is focused on winning, but it's only through achieving their goals. So while it's about expanding and attracting things in, it's still very self-focused. And it's like, I win and hopefully you win too, but I don't really care. So it's more of like, I'm owning what I do, but they're not really into the full-on win-win experience yet. So there's a lot of things that don't necessarily work in level 3, because while it's a win and a positive mindset, there's kind of this thing that happens with tolerating situations that don't always work. So there's a pause. It's kind of like the breath stage of like taking everything in and trying to analyze what's working, what's not working for you, but you're not necessarily in this position to move or do anything. So this is where that kind of like, I'm just going to sit here and take it all in, compared to level 2, that's all about action. So level 2 will actually get pissed off at people in level 3 because they want a reaction. So if you're in level 3 and you're like, I'm just going to observe all these people and these situations around, and you have someone in level 2 that's like, I'm going to get things done my way or the highway, and they see you sitting over there on a park bench, like observing everything, they're coming at you. And in fact, level 2 is going to come at you any way you slice it. If you get in their way or it's a perceived threat, they're coming for your throat. So level 3 is a good place to be if you find yourself kind of jumping to conclusions. So if you find yourself thinking in a level 2 mindset, level 3 is the next best place you can go, which is to take that pause and to think, where do I want to go next? And level 3, when you can master it, allows you to open up all of these other energy levels of seeing how to view things differently. So this is where you can kind of tap into empathy, into sympathy, into just breathing and self-care. And if you find yourself going into a stress reaction, level 3 kind of allows you to objectively look at how do you want to feel. But the thing about this is, like, you can think about how you want to feel, but at what point do you move? So people who have a lot of level 3 energy are masters at rationalizing. So if you find yourself not necessarily making excuses, but coming up with justifications for situations that may not be working for you, this is where that comes up. It's almost like a laundry list. So you cope and you release and you forgive and you tolerate, but it almost becomes this cycle of like, oh, I just got to tolerate. I will cope. I will forgive. And you move through it, but you're not actually moving on to the next. So level 3, it's in the right direction. 60% anabolic, 40% catabolic, but may not be ideal for creativity or team building. It's more along the lines of you winning and you getting yourself in a positive state. But once you feel really awesome about level 3, we can then tap into the next level, which is level 4. So this is moderately anabolic. And this is the level that I see show up in so many caretakers. I actually just had a meeting with someone who's a coach, and lots of coaches show up in level 4. Lots of people in nursing, in education, in social work, parents. If you are responsible for taking care of something or someone else, level 4 shows up like nobody's business. So the core thought here is a concern for others. Lots of caregiving, lots of supporting, lots of helping. If you see someone who's always volunteering and raising their hand to take care of something else, that's level 4 showing up. There's this feeling of selflessness because everything is focused towards other people achieving. So the core thought here is you win. It has nothing to do with me. When you win, I win. I win from you winning. Now, what's on the flip side of that? Well, when you are spending all of your time taking care of other people, what are you not taking care of? It's usually yourself. So what happens is when we overserve in level 4, we're not filling up our tank. We're not resting. We're not caring for ourselves. And then we end up getting a depletion and going to level 1. The other thing that we may be doing, and I kind of alluded to this in level 1, is that we may be overstepping and helping people who don't actually need our help, or that's not actually what they need. So we're assuming that by us coming in, we're being helpful and we're adding to the situation, but we may actually be slowing down someone else's progress. So I'm sure you can think of a time where this has happened. I know I can, where you have assumed that someone needs your help and you go in and you fix it. And then you find yourself 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, even down the line, doing the same activity or having the same interaction with that person. And you get frustrated because you're like, but I already helped you. Why are we still back here? And the reason is because you're not elevating their awareness. You're not helping them grow. You're serving yourself and the caretaker. And so you might be able to fix it temporarily, but on a long-term basis, you're not actually building skills or resilience for that person to help raise their energy level. So the key thing with level 4 is to understand your intention and your goal behind it. Is it about you or is it about the other person? And are you serving with expectations? Do you have something that's rooted into the bigger purpose of your caregiving, or is it really selfless and detached? The other key piece about level 4 is there is nothing that you take personally. So where level 4 gets jacked up is when you start to take lack of gratitude, lack of appreciation, and lack of self-care on your part. That gets taken personally, and that will deplete your level 4. So level 4, when it's not fed in a constructive way, leads to frustration, level 2, and overall energy depletion, level 1. So all of these levels work really in line with each other. They're all communicating with each other. But the opportunity here is in level 3, which is what's actually happening here. What do I need? What do they need? So it's the pause between you drop in there. So when you're in level 4 and if you're approaching someone in level 4, the best thing that you can communicate to them is specifically what you need. And if you are in level 4 on a primary level, or you feel it show up, the best thing you can do is ask, how can I support you? And to not assume. So it's understanding who are you interacting with. If it's someone in level 1 or 2, the first piece is to acknowledge and validate where they are. So what resources do they currently have? How can they own their situation? And do they want to move? See, here's the thing with energy. We assume that everyone wants to be where we are. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Sometimes people just want to hang out in level 1. Sometimes people want to hang out in level 2. Not everybody wants to be in level 4. Some people are like, go away, level 4. I don't need your help. But we assume that wherever we're showing up, we want other people to show up. So sometimes it's allowing people to just be. In fact, it's always about letting people just be where they are. But it's checking in with them to see where they actually are, assessing their situation, and then what is it that they need at that moment? Do they just need to vent? Do they want help? And what kind of help do they need? Because usually it's not about specifically, like if people need money, that's a symptom of something else. But if you can ask, what's going to be the most advantageous way for you to get involved without over-investing yourself with time, finances, resources, whatever it is, it's understanding that within yourself of what you're comfortable with versus what you're assuming other people need. Okay, so that's this is kind of the first connector of all of them, level 4 and 1. The other thing, level 2, when level 4 approaches level 2, it's not going to be pretty because level 2 is not going to want help because they're right. And by level 4 coming in, imagine like a really like angsty teenager that's like angry at the world, just wants to flick everybody off, and you come in and your level 4 parental self and say, honey, how can I help you? Can I make you something? Can I do this? Can I do this? They are going to lash out at you because they don't want your help. They're right. You're wrong. You're part of the problem. So the best thing you can do is just acknowledge where they are and let them be at that moment. As angry as they are, as frustrated as you think they are, that's where they choose to be at that moment. And then you allow them the space to flesh that out and approach you when they're ready to show up in a different level. The key thing is not to engage in an interaction that's going to allow your energy to be depleted or to drop. Because with level 4, when we get depleted, we drop to a level 1. Okay? This is a lot of stuff. I know. It took me 8 months to learn this stuff. and still more. So we're going to move on to level 5 here. This is where we get a little fun. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a side hustle, if you love to create projects, this is your happy place. This is a great, fun place to brainstorm, to bring in creativity, to bring in resources. So this is the top level of self-mastery. So we have moderate to high anabolic energy. The greatest leaders we have, the entrepreneurs that are popping up with all these startups, level 5 is their friend because they realize they can't do it on their own. And in fact, when they work with other people, it creates an even better product. So super high level of consciousness, and lots of situations, they see it as a game. So every person that they find, every situation, every opportunity, even if it doesn't necessarily go their way, they see it as a challenge in a fun way to create a new solution or opportunity. So this is kind of where innovation flies. You know, what is the problem they're trying to solve, and how many different solutions can they throw out and play with? There is this reconciliation that happens, and the definition of level 5 is kind of interesting. Is I see reconciliation as like more level 3, but in this case, it's more of like, how do you remove the judgment and allow it to work as a lesson? So how do we create those bricks to build something bigger? Whereas level 3 is more of, okay, there's some bricks on the ground. So when we see other people in level 5, the best thing we can do is support them in that creativity. So a lot of times when someone is in level 5 as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of judgment that comes in from level 2 because it's new. It's scary. What the hell are you doing? You're crazy. So the best thing that if you know that someone's in level 5 is to just observe and to ask open-ended questions. So who, what, when, where, and how. And it's all about tone. So if you feel in your body that tinge of judgment pop up, that's usually level 2 coming up, where you're having doubts about that. So the best thing for you to do is go to a level 3, where you're just taking everything in. Because here's the thing with level 5, when they don't feel supported, it's an immediate drop to level 1. Level 5 is reliant on others coming in and supporting. So when level 5 isn't supported, it's like the wind gets taken out of their sail immediately. Now, people who are primary level 5 will bounce right back and they'll get back on track. But the best thing to do is to not call them crazy, but to ask questions to understand more, or to give feedback in a way that allows them to think more comprehensively rather than naysaying or doubting. So you'll kind of see this with a lot of entrepreneurs, with creative types. What you hear from them is we all win or no one wins. So it's an all or nothing, but it's everyone involved. It's not about them. They're not coming from this egotistical thing of me or mine, but from a place of we. So we win or no one wins. In level 5, these leaders, super calm and powerful and confident. And they kind of like, you sit there and you look at them across the table and like, you're like, you got it together. Like, you know what you're talking about. There's this ease that they kind of just like spread across the table. And that's the thing is like, if you can tap into that and you can play in level 5, the options are endless. But if you feel like you're showing up at a level 2 when other people are in level 5 and you start to doubt that, that's kind of the introspection on yourself of like, what's getting triggered that prevents you from playing. So level 5, super fun. It's my favorite level. And you may have a favorite yourself. It might be level 4. But it's understanding where this kind of shows up for you. So if you're like, well, I don't own a business. I don't ever want to own a business. So where's my level 5? Well, this may come up in your family or with your friends. You know, when was the last time that you had maybe a game night or you cooked? You know, getting other people involved in the process of creating something is level 5. So let's talk about like family meal night. Someone might be in charge of salads. Someone else might be cooking meat or setting the table, but it's everyone working together to build something bigger than what you could do yourself. And it's a lot more fun. Okay? So we are going to take a little trip outside of self-mastery. We're going up to self-transcendence, and I don't have the music. This is us stepping outside of ourselves. So there are level 6 and 7 leaders that are out there, but they are not as common. The reason for that is primary level 6 is really challenging to maintain. In any business, in anything that you're responsible for, bottom lines, there are just natural stress elements that occur. So the challenge is, how do you maintain this high anabolic energy when you have all of this conflict coming up? So a lot of self-care is super important to maintain that. But level 6 is the second highest level of anabolic energy. And the core thought here is synthesis. So this is the blending of us and them, like everything is kind of an illusion where we're all part of this bigger energy that flows together. And you can conceptually know that, but when you practice this, you actually feel this flow that comes through. So everyone and everything that you experience is a part of you. So there is no judgment of I do this and you do this, or us and them, but it's more of we. So this is where intuition, where joy, it just chills. I call the level 6 space as your energy pops or your joy pops. So it's these moments of just like unrelenting joy of like, yes, this is fantastic. This is where creativity thrives. Visionaries and conscious leaders go and play here. So meditation is really good for this. Music, art, but anything creatively that you're doing where you remove that judgment is going to allow you to tap into this. And the core belief behind this is we always win, because when you release this win-lose judgment, you realize that everything is exactly how it needs to be. So the big difference between level 6 and 7 is level 6 has a little bit more reality based into it. So there's a little bit more application on what you can do with the creativity. So the ideas that come in are founded in a way that allows you to apply them to solutions or problems. But when we talk about level 7, there's kind of this detachment of reality. So if you've ever experienced someone in level 6, they're probably super happy and bubbly, but you can probably carry on a conversation with them. And they may seem a little out there and like, what are you actually talking about? Because I don't get it. But level 7 seems a little bit more out of this world. The big thing about level 6 and 7 is it kind of calls in some negative Nancy behavior in other people. And this is what I use in the description of like, if you're having a great day and someone comes along and flicks you off, that's calling in their catabolic energy, because when we don't see each other on the same energy level, it becomes a challenge and a threat to us. So a lot of times when people are in catabolic state, they see your happiness as either confusing or as threatening. And so they actually will challenge you to be on their level. They want to attract in catabolic energy. So this is where that kind of, I'm going to build you up to a pedestal and then knock you down comes through. So it's more of understanding how you feel and how you want to feel. And if you're being challenged, understanding that that's just how they are and letting them be and holding your space. Because once you've reacted to their catabolic energy, it actually feeds in to their current state and it drops you down. So level 6 and 7 becomes a magnet for levels other people who are in anabolic energy, but it also becomes a magnet for people who want to challenge that. Okay. So level 7, this is our final level. I know it's sad. We're almost done with our journey, but we're going to have some application after this. Level 7 is the highest level of anabolic energy. It's a top ring. This is the hardest level to sustain because it's the most apart from us. So unless we're in an environment, maybe it's being on a yoga retreat or being out in wilderness where you're not around everyday distractions, it's really challenging to maintain this. This is a space of completely objective thinking. There is zero judgment. It's this level of being fearless. And when you master this, you can tap into it on the ready. So it's almost like you have this level 7 button that you're like, okay, absolute passion right now. It allows you to just remove anything of what you should be doing, the expectations, the obligations, and it just allows you to be at peace. And not in a way that's, I don't know, it's not artificial. It's not like, I'm at peace with everything, I let it be, I have peace of mind. No, you actually feel peace. It's like, okay, everything is exactly how it needs to be and I'm cool. This is what being that ultimate flow pocket looks like, where it doesn't require any force. When people can come to a level 7, there is no conflict. There is no right or wrong. And there's this acceptance of everyone is doing exactly what they need to do and there are no mistakes. And I think where we currently are in the world today is very right and wrong and judgment based. I mean, this is why level 2 is a dominant energy in the world, because we still view each other as us and them. But when we can tap into level 7, there's just an appreciation of common ground because we all have pulses, because we are all here existing together. And it's this understanding that winning and losing are just illusions. Like, it's an illusion that we constructed, but it's not necessarily rooted in anything that should be. It just is. And everyone can access this. This is not something that only people who drop acid or do peyote or ayahuasca or meditate 24 hours a day can get to. This is something that you can tap into by breathing, by chilling out, by closing your eyes for a little bit, by going for a walk. But it's understanding and connecting to that absolute passion and purpose within you that allows you to see the beauty in everything else. So even like the things that would normally be seen as a problem or as conflict can actually be viewed as something that's beautiful and exactly where it needs to be as part of this world and experience. So when you can tap into this, you can become the most powerful being in the world. This is where your superpower is. So if you can do this, you can create your consciousness, you can create your experience, and you can just be your own rock star. The downside of level 7 is you may not remember to pay your bills. So when you're in this self-transcendence of nothing matters, all is well, all is good, what's right in front of you may be missed. So those obligations and expectations. And if you have people in your life who aren't at level 7, they're going to think you're crazy. They're going to think that you're a little woo-woo, probably a lot of woo-woo, and they may have you committed because they don't understand it. And that's okay, but it's understanding those energy levels around you and where you are and how you want to sit and feel. Okay? I'm just checking the time. Wow, I've been talking for a long time. All right, we're moving along. So this is the worksheet that I was talking about how does each level show up in you. So this is just kind of a general idea and framework. So you can think about how each level shows up in different situations. So what are those situations that make you feel level 1? Is it when someone talks down to you, makes you feel like you're this big? With level 2, is it being in a high conflict situation where you're sitting in traffic and someone cut you off? Level 3, it could be after a meeting where you're taking everything in. Level 4 could be caring for someone. Level 5, when you're brainstorming. Level 6, when you're feeling joy. Level 7, when you're meditating. So this is not something that's going to take you 3 seconds like it just took for me. Spend some time on this, but think about the situation where you feel that way, and then the emotions and the thoughts that you feel when you're in those situations that connect. And then think about, what do you need or want when you feel in those situations? So what would make you feel even awesomer that someone else could either give you or say to you? And this is going to help you in your core energy communication, because when you can understand what you need or want in that situation, it better enables you to connect to other people who are in those levels. So if you're in level 1, sometimes you just want to be heard. If you're in level 2, you just want to be acknowledged and validated. If you're level 5, you want someone to play and party with you. So this is kind of understanding what you need and what others may need. So I'm going to send these slides out so you guys can use them as worksheets, but I highly recommend this in your application for yourself and people around you, and helping you understand how you interact with that. And then this is just some general questions to look at. So what levels are around you and how do you think they affect you? So if you can think of back on the level 1 through 7, what energy level do you think most people are kind of chilling around you? And you can list coworkers or family members or people who are around you, list their name and then put a number next to it and think about where they're showing up most. And then figure out how you're kind of interacting with them and how does that energy level affect you? How does it make you feel? This is another piece of awareness, because that you can then go back to the previous chart to then start applying those tactics of what do you need to hear? What do you think they need to hear? How could you best support them in that way? Okay, these are just some questions. And then this is just a little diagram on level 1. And we can do another webinar to dive into this a little deeper. But these are those little catchphrases that each level kind of points at. So you can actually come from feeling like a level 1, and what would you be thinking if someone approached you with those sayings? You know, if someone says, I lose, why bother, and you're at level 1, and you're thinking, well, I lose, why bother, you guys are having a pity party together. And if you have someone saying, I win, but you have to lose, then you're going to feel like crap even more. So you can imagine yourself in this center at any level, but think about how any of those sayings are going to connect to your feelings and how it's either going to increase your energy level or take away from it. Okay? Then we have one more. Awesome. So this is just a general example that you can use in the way that you interact with people. So you can think about the level that you think someone shows up at, your level, and then what do you think their goal is in the communication, and what would you say your goal is? This is a quick example between level 1 and level 4. Level 1, I can't do this. Level 4, I feel better when I help you do this. Their goal to be taken care of, your goal to support them without being depleted. And then thinking about what is the win-win. So everybody wins in this situation. So this was just my idea behind it of provide support when asked and have the person at level 1 feel empowered to ask for help and support so that they can support themselves. And here's the strategy. So acknowledge and validate. So acknowledge where they are. If, that sounds really sad and frustrating. And validate them of, if I'm sure experiencing that's exhausting. Detached engagement, these are things that, we can take forever, but it's more of not getting in their story and being able to maintain your energy and your level, but also by supporting them. So asking them, how can I support you? And also knowing when your limits are and when you can cut it off. So this is just an example, but if you can plan out your strategy based on the energy levels that you encounter, that you communicate with, you can better create a strategy that allows you to maintain your energy level and help to raise people up when they're ready. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to lose my breath, but do you guys have questions? Mari or Mike? Mari, you got something?
No, I was just going to say I don't have any questions.
Yes. You left me? Okay. We did have some questions come in, so I just want to focus on these. These came in before the webinar. So how much will energy level tend to fluctuate? So for instance, can you have a level 1 day, but generally hover at level 4? Absolutely. Energy fluctuates from minute to minute. It's situational based. So even if you generally show up at level 4 or level 1, it can shift around at any time. So this isn't like a personality type where you're in this box. This is constantly changing and evolving. And even if you have the assessment done, you could have it done, in a week or a month or a year and have a completely different profile. Okay. Next question, how similar are energy levels to mindsets? 100%. So your mindset is in line with your energy level. So those statements that we had, that becomes the mindset or the lens that you look at things. And then last question, how much can we trust our own ratings of ourselves? Do we have a good pulse generally? I think yes, when you can have that awareness and objective look at the energy levels, then you can trust yourself. But it's understanding how each of those levels resonates within you. That gives you the choice on whether you want to stay there or you want to shift or change. Okay. So this is the assessment, and actually you guys have already had that, but if anyone else that listens to the recording wants to have the assessment done, then we are opening it up for webinar participants, and it gets the 1 hour debrief so you can understand your roadmap and where to go from there. But I think we are at just about time, and I want to thank you guys for joining me and for listening to me yammer on about energy levels. It's what I geek out on, and I love it. If you have any questions, my info is there. If you want to get the assessment done, you can contact me. It's a great tool, not just for you, but for your teams, for your loved ones, for the people around you, to help you better communicate and connect to their energy and to hear what they're saying without actually knowing what they're saying. So thank you guys so much, and have an awesome day, and keep checking in with those energy levels. Bye now.